Welcome back, everyone, to the Comics Cube. Today, I'm with Jed Mackay. Hi, Jed. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. For the benefit of our viewers, the reason Jed has a graphic up instead of a video is internet connectivity issues, and that's uh that's okay because we're just gonna be talking. So my first question is, what got you into comics as a fan and as a writer? What was the spark for you?
Well, I've always been into comics ever since I was a kid, really. Um, Comics are pretty much how I learned how to read. Reading, old uh, Barks and Don Rosa, Donald Ducks,
Oh
and
wow.
Tintin, stuff like that. And I just sort of came up on came up with my dad's old comics. He collected a lot of mostly Marvel, some DC stuff, basically through the late '60s and then through the '70s. So I really came up on stuff of that vintage.
Hmm.
Um, and then as I got older, I just sort of got into more modern comics that were going around. And um, in my late teens, early 20s, I got really interested in like indie stuff and just specifically people making their own comics. And that was something I was really interested in. I thought I was going to be an artist and a writer. That pretty quickly proved to be something that was not viable. Was not going to happen. So yeah, that's where it all started.
Um, that's that's interesting. I'm such a big Karl Barks Don Rosa fan. Uh, would you say that you're directly
Yeah, I
influenced
mean,
by them as
it's
a writer?
I think to a certain extent. I mean, the stuff I write is very different than the sort of subject matter you're going to get in those classic duck stories.
Hmm.
But I think there's a certain sense of adventure in this kind of like exploration and freewheeling excitement that um, I re- I really enjoy and try to bring to things that I work on
Yeah.
when appropriate.
You have a good balance of adventure, of seriousness in your adventure, and as well as humor. And I think a lot of the people, when they look at the Karl
Mm,
Barks and Don Rosa stuff, they don't, at first glance, they don't realize that it can get serious and high adventure. But
yeah,
try to read some,
it's like
guys.
it's not just gags.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's not just jokes. This is like it's really great adventure stuff, and you going around the world, getting into different situations. It's something that was, and then again, when you follow up with Tintin, which I was also very into when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just a sense of adventure. I think is really it's something you can basically apply to anything that you do. It's a really useful early lesson to sort of take in storytelling.
And with things like Daughters of the Dragon and Alpha Flight, I think it's pretty clear that you're a fan of these characters. What would you say?
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
so, what draws you to these, let's say, not A tier characters?
Part of it is that you get sort of a little lower down the ladder, you have a lot more room to work.
Hmm.
And you have a lot more room to sort of, it allows for a greater level of interpretation, given that these are characters who are not so solidified in their characterization. You have a little more leeway.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have a lot of fun with, trying to find a take on a character that remains true to that character. There's also something that's maybe a little different or a little newer or a little more exciting than what the reader might be expecting. I mean, so with someone like for instance, Daughters of the Dragon, there's room for that. Whereas with Spider-Man, there's
Mm.
it's less so, right? It's a much bigger deal. There's much more money involved in the character, and any sort of changes or sort of differences in the way you would do things would go under much greater scrutiny.
You did write a lot about Spider-Man, though, in the Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon books.
Yeah, but you know what? I never wrote a Peter Parker
Yeah.
Spider-Man solo story till like last month. which is wild because I've written like a lot of different Spider-Man stuff over the last few years.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Spider-Verse and the Spider-Geddon books are. If you talk about writing flexibility, that's basically those are the books to be on if you want to if you want to write a Peter
Hmm.
Parker, right? So let's talk about somebody who's
I
been.
mean, or
Yeah, okay,
even just a Spider-Man. Like
yeah.
they gave Sheldon.
Was
I
that?
was
I'm
gonna say
sorry.
they gave Sheldon and I the Punk Spider-Man, and we're like, oh,
Yeah.
should it be? Oh, we're talking about the Spider-Man. They gave Sheldon and I the Punk Spider-Man, and we're like, should it be Peter Parker? We're like, no, we'll make it Hobie Brown instead. And do something a little different.
Yeah, that was a nice twist. I mean, Spider-Verse was all about like all those nice smaller twists that also fed into the bigger twists, like
Mm.
Spider-Punk being Hobie Brown. Thought that was always that was that's pretty cool and kind of was a treat to longtime fans. So let's talk about somebody who's been through a lot ever since
Oh,
she
thank
was
you.
created. The Black Cat. What attracts you to the Black Cat?
Um, Again, part of it is that idea of working with a character, a little lower down the sort of prestige ladder, and having room to find that character's place in the book or in the Marvel universe. But also, I really like Felicia. She's a character that's very much within my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
She's again, adventurous, exciting. She's a scoundrel. She's back to a life of crime, which is always fun. So you're mixing the hero side with the villain side of the Marvel universe, and kind of bringing people in from both ends. She's clever and brave, but also gets in over her head relatively frequently. Um, yeah, it's just there's just a lot to like with the character, and I think that she's someone who was really ready for that sort of focus, or that look at how she exists in the Marvel universe outside of anybody else.
She's an interesting character because, like I said, she's been through a lot. She was introduced as a villain, and then she was, Spider-Man's girlfriend slash partner for a while. Um, when
Mhm.
you picked her up, she was just coming off a long stretch where she was trying to be the, the new Kingpin, basically. Um,
Right.
what's the connective tissue, the connective through line throughout this character's entire arc? Like, what do you think is at the core of her?
The core of her here is, like in Black Cat, the series that we're doing, is what we're doing is we're looking at how she acts and why she does acts this way. It's something we get into a lot about. There's some talk about why do people become thieves, because they want something they can't have, and that's a kind of a pat answer. But where like it's interesting is to think, what is this? What are the things that these people want that they can't have? What is it that makes them pursue this life of crime? As benign as their life of crime may be, like Felicia's not, ripping off pensioners or anything like that, but she does live outside of the sort of accepted boundaries of uh, polite society. And what is it about her character that makes her want to do that? Her need for independence, her addiction to excitement and danger, and again, wanting things that she can't have. And part of that as well ties into sort of her experiences with her family and the people around her family. We've been trying to build up some of her backstory with her father, her with the Black Fox, with the Drake family, and how that kind of ties together and how that all comes together, like anybody else, to be the different threads that build up someone's identity.
Did you how much preparation did you do for the Black Eye? Did you read all of her appearances or all of her previous miniseries before coming on?
I read most of them.
Hmm.
It's she. I mean, she's appeared in a lot of books over the last 40 years.
Yeah.
So it's a little difficult to track all of them down. I'm still surprised sometimes when I come across stuff. Um, but I mean, I like you do. You start at the beginning because that's often the most formative period for a character, and go through there, and then just kind of a lot of it. You look at the wikis a lot because
Yeah.
they often hit sort of the high points that you got to go and take a look at. So yeah, like I don't know if I've read every appearance she's done, but I've certainly gone through gone through most of her beginning, gone through the hits. I think I'm pretty well versed at this point in time, but
Yeah,
I mean,
it shows.
ultimately, writing comics, it doesn't come down to how many comics you read. It comes down to how well you can write a story about a character.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of going
As
back
long
to
as
the
you can,
beginning, okay, go on. Sorry.
let's say, like, as long as you can avoid, like, glaring continuity errors, I, as long as you have an interesting take that makes sense in the universe, I think you're good to go.
And speaking of, going back to the beginning, your supporting cast, Boris Corpse, Dr. Boris Corpse, and Bruno Granger, those are deep cuts. That goes all the way back to the beginning. They show up once, they never really show up again. Uh, why bring them back as opposed to just creating a new supporting
Yep.
cast? You clearly love writing Boris Corpse. It really shows in the way that you write him.
Yeah, I knew from the get go that I wanted Felicia to have a crew. I wanted because I wanted her to have someone, to bounce her ideas off of, or to like react to the things that she does. And like I like having character, a world around them, with people that they interact with, because it just makes them feel more real and more lived in. Um, so when I started doing my research on these two like really weird idiosyncratic guys that Felicia recruits, Dr. Corpse and Bruno Granger. I'm like, man, these guys are perfect. Like, I'm absolutely gonna snap these guys up and take them. I could have made someone up,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately, Boris and Bruno were in like what 3, 4 issues.
Yeah.
It's not like they have a rich backstory to drop on, but I think taking these characters who literally go back in Marvel history as far as Felicia does, and dragging them forward, nothing's been done with them in the interim, I think is kind of a useful and interesting way to root Felicia in her own history and root this book in the history of the Marvel universe. Say, if you want to go back and check out this character's first appearance, you're going to see not just her, but other members of this cast. And I mean, ultimately, I think they're just both really great characters. They're a lot of fun to work with.
That's interesting. You basically took two very, very minor characters and you found something interesting in them. I think that's a big difference of what sets a writer aside from a fan. Like that's what
Hmm.
you know what I mean.
Oh, thank you.
But Dr. Boris Corpse in particular, are you channeling anyone in particular there? Because he basically chews up the scenery in every scene he's in. I love it.
Yeah, like he's a character I like, in that he's like really mouthy and like kind of shitty and thinks he's better than everyone, but also keeps getting into trouble and like
Hmm.
can't really keep himself out of trouble. Whereas like if he wasn't working for Felicia, he'd definitely be back in prison, probably doing like another encore performance of Richard III. Um, but yeah, it's fun to write characters who are, like I said, really idiosyncratic and weird and kind of assholes, which kind of has become my stock and trade. And he's there to be a real contrast to Bruno, who's like a very stolid, very loyal, very laconic sort of character. And they balance each other out that way.
Yeah, Bruno is the straight man.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
And what was the impetus to make her basically travel the whole Marvel universe? Because this is a unique take. This is not a take that Felicia has been known for. I know she showed up in, she had a mini series with Wolverine several years ago. But that's really about it. She's mostly stuck to the Spider-Man side of things.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that, like I think I talk about this a lot whenever I talk about Black Cat, but we wanted to, like, not distance her from the Spider-Man part of the world, but to show that she's not completely beholden to it.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted the book to be Black Cat, not Spider-Man featuring Black Cat. And then by having her interact with other players in the Marvel universe. It's a fun and interesting and exciting way to put her out there and put her in the world and say, like, look, here's this character that a lot of people have overlooked. Here's a character that a lot of people dismiss. But here she is holding her own with, hitters, A-listers in the Marvel universe. And like this is a character that should have been given the spotlight ages ago, and here she is now, and this is what she has to offer, and here's why she deserves a seat at the table. It's very easy to well, no, that's not true. But one of the things that people always go on and on and on about is people are asking, does the story matter? Does the story matter? And this is our way of making the stories matter. This is us saying this isn't something that's just off in one corner that everyone can ignore. But no, like we've got Doctor Strange, we've got the Fantastic Four, we've got
Yeah.
Wolverine, we've got Iron Man. This is us bringing this book through every corner of the Marvel universe. This is us bouncing around between various A-list characters, and ultimately it's just kind of fun.
I feel like the book has kind of given a lot of texture to the Marvel universe, because it kind of shows the dynamics that she has with these other characters are very different from the way that we see other heroes interact with each other, or the way that we see villains interact with each other. I mean, she goes on sprees, and then she goes on dates with people like Johnny Storm and Batroc.
Yeah.
So given that, are we looking at any more of these particular romantic interests, or are we kind of seeing her kind of just dating different people in different storylines?
We'll see a little more of the romance side coming up in the future. Not immediately, but it'll be a little while yet.
Is it someone we've seen before?
I mean, it could be. It could not be. I mean, that would be telling, wouldn't it?
Yep.
But yeah, like the thing is, people have asked, like, when are we going to see like a romance arc or anything like that? And I'm just like, well, we're kind of moving too fast for that. Part of the reason I think we've been able to not get canceled yet is just sheer momentum.
Yeah.
We're trying to basically move this plot at a breakneck speed so that people stay excited and stay interested. And at the moment, we can't really slow down for like a romance melodrama.
With that, I want to say thank you for giving us the best iteration of Batcat. I know there's another Batcat running around that the internet loves, but Batroc and Batroc Black Cat is to use a wrestling term, I marked out. So
that's good. I'm glad you liked it. I thought that one was going to be a hard sell. I love Batroc.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if I can get this past my editor, even though like I know Nick loves Batroc. I think when I sent him this sort of outline for it, I'm like, okay, hear me out. Let me make my case before you shut this down. But he's like, no, I love it. Let's do it. I'm like, oh, good. Dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, I have a friend who hates it. He was like, no, because he hates Batroc. And I'm like, you got to live with it. It happened.
Like, how can you hate Batroc?
She's too good for him, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, of course she is, but it's not like they're getting married.
Yep. And what do you think of this general move? I think this is kind of an amazing thing that I've seen in the last couple of years. What do you think of this general move to get the Spidey characters to stand on their own? Because, like, in a big contrast, there are other superhero franchises that will never let you forget that the spin-off characters are part of that superhero franchise without naming any names. But
so you're talking about like it. You think that this is something kind of unique to the Spider office, where you see these characters spin off into their own things?
They're spinning off into their own things, and they're not constantly being reminded that they are Spider characters. Like Venom is his own thing now, which is insane.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you guys saved Spider-Man for the annual, but if you didn't know it was an annual, he would have just been another guest star like Doctor Strange or Iron Man or Wolverine.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think
I
that
mean,
is
like
unique. Yeah.
I would love to see Black Cat do Venom numbers. I'll tell you that much.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like Venom's become a powerhouse on its own. They've been just tearing it up over there. And like you see other Spider-Man books or like Spider-Man character books, like Mary Jane was like really well received, I believe, and I think there's a new Silk series starting up.
Yeah.
The Spider-Man office has always had a lot of really great characters, and I think the trick is just to get them out there and to find that readership, to find that fan base, the people that will support these characters. And I think kind of the sky's the limit from there, because like there's just so many other books they could spin out of Spider-Man.
Yeah, and you're doing it in a way that doesn't rely on Spider-Man. Because I remember the last several Black Cat books, Spider-Man guest stars in the first issue, just
Mm.
to kind of. It always kind of feels like it's there to emphasize, hey, look, this is a Spider-Man book, and you should buy it because it's a Spider-Man book, you know. But you guys don't
Yeah,
really use him. I mean, any more than you use the other heroes. You've used Doctor Strange more than you've used him.
yeah. And I mean, like I said, it was something I wanted to do from the get-go, and I think that was kind of a leap of faith on the Spider Office's part. Nick Lowe in particular, um, because when you start a book with a B C list character, odds are it's not going to last 5 issues, or it will last 5 issues, but that'll be it. And you kind of want to hedge your bets, where you think, oh, if I put Spider-Man at this first issue, then there's people out there who will just buy anything Spider-Man's in. So by not having Spider-Man appear for like, geez, I don't remember when the annual came out, but it's probably 5, 6 issues in.
Yeah, I think it's halfway
Um,
through.
yeah, like that was a real kind of leap of faith for editorial, and I think that it was great that they supported that idea that this book could or should have the opportunity to try to stand on its own.
Is there a magic? Is there a magic formula to kind of get to that leap of faith to kind of get them to take that leap of faith, or
I mean, if there is, you let me know when you find it out.
like you don't think there was something in your proposal that convinced them specifically, or
I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine. Like I was pretty upfront at the beginning. I'm like, listen, um, Black Cat I think is really great and is really interesting, but we gotta let her stand on her own 2 feet. And in the past, we have seen Spider-Man closely pop up with these Black Cat minis, but ultimately you want to try to develop a character and develop a property um, that can weather the storm without sort of the mothership.
mm-hmm. And excuse me, what are the challenges as what are the challenges as a writer, as a male writer, getting into the head of somebody like the Black Cat?
Yeah, I mean
Because
it's certainly
she's not a masculine character in any way.
no. I mean, it's certainly a challenge. It's a challenge in the respect that you want to do a good job, because I mean I'm sure anybody listening to this can immediately off the top of their heads think of instances where male writers have written female characters in extremely embarrassing fashions. Um, I'm not really interested in getting embarrassed by the things I write.
Mm-hmm.
So the I try to approach a character that's different from me and has like wildly different experiences, um, with a sense of empathy, and a sense of respect, because one of the sort of expectations that people had excuse me, going into a Black Cat book is that it's going to be a cheesecake book, it's going to be a
Yeah.
bad girl book, um, and again one of the sort of most common responses is surprise and people being kind of delighted that it's not. And I think it comes down to treating the character as you would any other character. You have to look at what it is she wants, how it is she gets it, um, the things that she will do, the things she won't do, the things she likes, the things she doesn't like, and try to create as fully formed or as rounded a character as you can in your mind. And as you write it, stay true to that character, stay true to that interpretation that you have, which is, and all the you're looking at all the facets of this character, and the good and the bad, the glamorous and the unglamorous. And I think that's the trick, is try to provide this character with excuse me, as much agency as you can to show the reader that the things that she's doing are things that she wants to do for good reasons or bad.
Speaking of expectations of it being a cheesecake book, I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that J. Scott Campbell was the cover artist for the first series.
I mean, sure. J. Scott Campbell, he does what he does, but at the same time, I think that he has such a wide fan base. I would say he's probably instrumental in bringing a lot of people to this book.
I was gonna say, yeah, because he's such a popular and big seller.
Yeah, he's a very iconic artist. He's really made drawings that are sort of the archetypical Mary Jane, for instance, for the modern age. And I think he, like I said, he's extremely good at what he does, and he had, I think, brought a lot of people to this book that ordinarily wouldn't have given it a shot. So, yeah, like I think he's probably fairly instrumental in ensuring the book moved on beyond 5 issues.
And Pepe Larraz is drawing the covers now. Yeah. Also looking very good. Also a pretty big artist right now. Huh? So,
but yeah, Pepe and Marte are just really tearing it up in this new run of covers, and it's an interesting kind of watershed or break from the first run to the second run. It brings in a different group of people and shows kind of the flexibility of the book and the variety of the book.
And what can people expect from the remainder of this King in Black story arc without spoiling anything?
This is sort of emblematic of the fact that every time you find a way out of a problem, you find yourself into a bigger problem. Felicia has sort of leveled herself up, powered herself up, but that brings with it a whole new host of problems. And we're going to see those problems unfold in a couple weeks.
So historically speaking, a lot of writers have expressed displeasure at having to work into a crossover, but it looks to me like you're having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, it, like, from the get-go, it was an enormous pain in the ass, because not having to be part of the crossover, but just it's the first time I'd ever written a story that was a crossover, and doing this 3-issue King in Black thing presented some new challenges that I've not encountered before, and had sort of had the experience to figure out ahead of time. Where the first issue of the King in Black crossover was also the first issue of the new Black Cat series. So
yeah.
I had several, not conflicting, but certainly competing goals or needs from the story. Is that first off has to be a good first issue to introduce new readers to the story, and to say, hey, this book's called Black Cat, this is what we do, here's the people in it, here's the things that they get up to. Additionally, it has to be a Black Cat book in the tradition of the Black Cat books that came before. So readers who had read the previous series and who wanted more would get more. It wasn't just a hand-holding introduction to the world of Black Cat. And then on top of that, it also had to tell readers everything they need to know about King in Black without merely being a rehash of King in Black #1. So there's like a lot of balls juggling in the air, and it was really challenging. But ultimately, I think we kind of got there. And then once issue 1 was done, issue 2 and 3 were basically straight ahead Black Cat stories. We got all the exposition out of the way in that first issue. We told people, we set up all the pins, and then from 2 and 3, we just started knocking them down.
I think that the Black Cat series is a natural fit for telling that side story for King in Black, because the way that you've basically laid out her world has kind of led to that, to kind of showing how big this universe really is and how small she is in that space. Like, you've got Doctor Strange's dog thinking she's Silver Sable, and
Yeah,
like it might surprise some readers, being like, how can you think that's Silver Sable? But it's true. Like, in a world with that many superheroes, you're bound to confuse some of them.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
you got a moment in this first issue where she's introducing herself to Captain America, and Captain America says, like, Spider-Man has spoken of you. And I remember reading Maximum Carnage
Yeah,
when I was younger, and I'm like, yeah, he wouldn't remember her because he's worked with so many people. And
yeah,
right?
and I mean, the thing is with that is I've because people have brought that up before, and they're like, "Oh, well, they met in Maximum Carnage. You didn't do your research." I was like, "Listen, dude, the editor of this, one of the editors of this book is the Venom editor. He knows everything that's ever happened in a Venom book." Um, but I mean, the like I could have said, "Yeah, sure, I remember you from Maximum Carnage." But that's not really that interesting to me. Where if you can have a cute anecdote with Spider-Man, then it's a little more fun. It's a little more Black Cat than just saying, "Oh yeah, I remember you from Maximum Carnage," which like we referenced that in um, issue 11 when
Hmm.
she was undercover at Iron Man's place. She said I was in the Carnage riots, the first ones in New York. Um, so yeah, like long story short, I knew that she met in Maximum Carnage. Cap probably did too, but also Cap is a good leader. He understands that you in a crisis situation, you want to try to put people at their ease. So you
Hmm.
say, yes, we have this mutual friend, we have this mutual connection, and that this is something Cap would know would endear him to her.
Oh, that's completely different from how I read it, but that's okay too. That works.
Hey, I mean,
Yeah.
if you like it the other way, you can go with that too. It doesn't bother me.
I'm just like, Cap's worked with like a billion people. He's not gonna remember her.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
honestly, anybody else I would go with that, but Cap would remember.
that's true. Um, and that's why I said, like, by working with this very grounded character Felicia, you're kind of showing how big the universe is, and I thought that was an interesting way to kind
Oh,
of
thank you.
it's a commonality with the Venom book as well that I've noticed, is that you guys are separating yourself from the Spider-Man books by showing how big the Marvel universe actually is. Uh,
Hmm.
you're basically just breaking apart from the Spider-Man roots.
But it's not just showing how big the Marvel universe is, but also specifically carving out our own place in it.
Mhm. Um, and speaking of your own place in it, there's a lot of you. You've worked with multiple artists on this book: Travel Foreman, Saif Villa, Joey Vasquez, Chris Anka. I hope I'm not
Mhm.
missing anyone. What's it like working with these guys, and the fact that they have they have similar enough styles? I mean, that reading it together is seamless, but also
Mhm.
distinct enough styles that you know each one is a different artist.
Yeah, it's actually been it's been really exciting working with. I mean, working with artists is pretty much the best thing about working being a comic book writer because you work with people who are super exciting and super interesting and have so much to bring to a book, um, bring their own ideas, their own perspectives, um, and the artists that editorial's been lining up to bring to Black Cat are all people whose work I really really like and all bring something different or something really interesting to it. The end when we finished up Black Hat number 12 and we went on hiatus, I was going through. I think I was doing like a day by day artist retrospective, where I just kind of talk about each different artist that worked on the book and what they brought to it and why I was really excited to work with them. And it's really been interesting to see how they approach the character and see how they approach her supporting cast and see how they approach the action. Like just in the new series alone, you got CF is back, and I was really psyched when he came on the books. I was a fan of his work from back when he was doing illustrations for role playing games, and like I think it was like what 2014, 2015. I was like, man, I really like those illustrations. And 5, 6 years later, like and Nick's like, hey, we got this guy at CFV. I was like, oh shit, I know that guy.
Oh wow.
Or like Travel Foreman, they brought him in. Um, Nick wanted to kind of recreate the energy of Daughters of the Dragon, so he got Travel back and he got Farron back to do the letters. And I was a big Travel Foreman fan. I mean, why wouldn't you be?
He's got a
And
cool name too.
yeah, and like same thing, Chris Anka, Annie
Yeah.
Wu. Sorry, I'm totally blanked on the name there.
Joey Vasquez.
Uh, yeah, no, oh, sorry, Dowling. Yeah, I
Oh,
kept wanting to say Mike Hawthorne, but Mike Dowling, who I loved his work on Unfollow. Yeah, Joey, Annie Wu, Juan Gideon, Natasha Bustos, like just so many great artists. And yeah, we're gonna see that continue. CF's finishing up King of Black 1 to 3. Um, yeah, and then we got a couple more. Yeah, there's a lot going on with art, and I just really lucky to be able to work with such great talent.
The Black Cat, the King and Black storylines wrapping up in a couple of weeks, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that last issue ended on a very joyful cliffhanger. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, it should be good.
Shifting gears a little bit, how did you get on the Taskmaster?
It was just Chris Robinson, who was the editor on the book at the beginning, just sent me an email going on 2 years ago now, I guess, saying, do you have time to work on another book? At that point in time, I said, well, of course. And he said, well, I'm doing a Taskmaster book and I have some kind of loose ideas I want to put together. And he told me what he wanted, and I put it together, and that's where the book came from.
Are you a big Taskmaster fan going way back?
Yeah, I like Taskmaster a lot. I put him in Daughters of the Dragon
Mhm.
there, the second issue that Joey drew. I like sort of a shitty, sassy, working man supervillain.
I like your take on him, where he's basically a coward.
Yeah,
uh,
I'm glad you do. Some people seem to be taking exception to it, but I stand by it.
I saw some people online like somebody was complaining that the cover of the next issue has him cowering in fear and he's the protagonist. It's like that's okay. I don't really see
Yeah,
the big deal.
I mean, he's also kind of a shithead, but he's still a protagonist, so that's fine.
It's not like he's a good guy.
No, and I mean I find the characters with a lot with real sort of failings perhaps most interesting.
Mhm.
Taskmaster is he's really great at fighting, but also there's things he's afraid of, such as dying. And when the Black Widow is coming out to kill you, odds are you're going to be dead. Like it's not like fighting Captain America. Captain America is not going to murder Taskmaster.
Of
Even
course.
Hyperion was probably not going to kill Taskmaster in front of a dozen people. But like the Black Widow, she's not a superhero. She's a super assassin. And if she wants to murder him, he's going to die. So he's got to do something to get out of that gun sight.
Was there a higher directive for this Taskmaster project? Like meaning that with the Black Widow movie coming out, was that the reason it was? Is that the reason the Taskmaster has a book with a Black Widow in it? Is I guess what I'm asking.
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is totally corporate synergy. Like don't get me wrong, I'm super psyched to be doing a Taskmaster book, and I would love to do another one after this movie comes out. But the book owes its existence to this movie coming out. I said I've got a movie coming out with Taskmaster in it. The Taskmaster series come out. The movie's Black Widow. Black Widow's got to be in the book.
I still
And
find it interesting though because it's not like it's not like the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 came out and Ego had a book, right? Or
yeah,
it's not
I
like
mean,
Hela has a book. Yeah.
Ego is a little tougher to put a series around.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. um But so the Taskmaster, what do you think is his driving motivation? It's just to stay alive
He's
and money.
well, he's a little more complex than you might think. Because like my take on Taskmaster isn't just the fact that he wants to get paid. Like he likes obviously he's a freelancer, he needs to get paid. He's in it for the money. But I mean, there's got to be easier ways to make a living with the skills he's got. I think there's part of him that likes the adventure, likes the excitement. There's part of him who's a bully who just likes beating up people who are so far below his level. And I think there's a part of him that's just a bit theatrical. Like he likes dressing up in his ridiculous costume and getting up to shenanigans.
Even when playing
But
golf.
I mean, it's an award winning costume. You'd be crazy not to wear it. Branding is important in the world of entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. It's one of it's a famous George Perez design
Yeah,
with
exactly.
everything that entails.
Yeah, he's got like a studded garter for no real reason. It's awesome.
I love how Alessandro Vitti is showing expressions through the Taskmaster's mask.
So good, isn't it?
When he finds out the Black Widow's coming after him, and he's like, "Ah!"
There's some real great Alessandro skull expressions in the next issue, which is out I think next week. Yeah, like Taskmaster's a tough character to draw because
Just
first
a
off, it's
skull.
tough to strike the balance of like him being like a physical and intimidating character while also dressing like a dipshit. But also that skull, like it's very hard to make that skull expressive without going too far in the other direction. And Alessandro is one of those guys who just nails it. Like he does such a good job
Yeah, he
of
does.
making you understand that that is a mask certainly, but that it's a mask that moves like it's like Deadpool's mask where somehow it moves around.
Yeah, or the Green Goblin mask,
Yeah, actually, so that's a much better example.
which still boggles my mind as to how it works. But
Yeah, it's comic book magic, you know.
I know it's like the way people wanted to look that way in the movies. I'm like, how it doesn't work. It's
I
physically
mean,
not possible.
I feel like you can do a lot with a Marvel budget and 10 million server farms to render it, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Got a couple of last questions. What is
Sure.
Avengers Mech Strike? That's an interesting project.
Yeah, it's quite the to do. Yeah, Mech Strike's coming out tomorrow. Um, yeah, they basically came to me in the spring. I got an email and said, "Hey, we're doing this sort of out of continuity, but played as if it could be in continuity. Story about the Avengers in robot suits. Here's the robot suit designs. What can you give us? Like, come up with a story." I was like, "Well, shit, I'll take that." I'd never worked with the Avengers before. I'd never done a team book before. Um, and it was just like an interesting challenge to kind of figure out.
And what's it like working on a team book as opposed to a solo book?
Uh, Difficult. Uh, I've got like what 8 Avengers, all of whom are like top tier characters. You got to give them all their spotlight as well as you can, while still keeping things moving forward. Like it's a lot of fun to have Spider-Man talking to Captain America, or like Black Widow giving Thor some shit. But at the same time, I'm just like, man, I got to be careful not to focus on my favorites. Make sure everyone's got something to do. Everyone's got some business. Um, but again, it was really interesting because these are all characters, not just at like a level of prestige, but at a power level that I don't ordinarily work in. Like
It's
I'm
true.
used to writing Black Cat and Taskmaster, people who like punch people, and are if you put someone with a gun in front of them, they're going to be like, oh. Ugh. On the other hand, now I've got like the Hulk and Captain Marvel and Thor. I'm just like, wow, these are people whose sort of threat resistance is much, much higher than the characters I'm used to dealing with.
Can you name a B list, C list character that you're not writing right now that you would love to write?
I mean, I don't know how much time you got. Uh, so
I'm
like
good.
about like a I'd love to do another Taskmaster series. I've got
Mhm.
a couple ideas for some Taskmaster minis I'd love to do. Maybe I'll get the chance to do them uh, depending on how the numbers come out with this series. Who knows? Maybe sometime in the future.
Mhm.
Um, also, I think there's something else the other day. But I've got a few sort of
So the
pocket favorites like Ulysses Bloodstone. Love to do him in a little series. When I first started Black Cat, I was really trying to push Ulysses Bloodstone. I got him in
really,
Black Cat #1.
yeah.
Got him in that Alpha Flight story I did, and I did a Bloodstone solo story in Bizarre Adventures, that anthology book.
Uh,
Uh,
and Badrock.
Batroc, always loved Batroc. Uh, Shoot, who was it? There's somebody that I was thinking of recently that I was like, yeah, I'd love to do a series with this guy, but right now I don't have any time to take on anything new. Oh man, it's gonna drive me crazy. I can't remember that.
That's okay. You can send me a message if you want, if you can
Yeah.
remember who it is. And my very last question is, when I was doing the research for this interview, I ran into another Jed Mackay. Just for the record, you are not that Jed Mackay, right?
I mean, which Jed Mackay do you think I am?
No, I mean I ran into a Jed Mackay who is a Canadian producer of art.
Yeah, that's not me.
Yeah, okay.
Um, yeah, there's another Jed Mackay in Canada, which is like endlessly confusing for people who are trying to find information about either one of us.
Yeah.
To this day, he still has one of my credits on his IMDb, which I still haven't got. I wrote an episode of Ninja Turtles like 5 years ago,
Okay.
and it ended up on his IMDb because I don't have one. And I keep meaning to like, oh, I should email somebody, get that figured out, but I just like I never bother because like at this point, who cares?
That's yeah, it was it took me a while to be like, wait, I think these are two different guys.
Yeah, I was doing an interview for something like just an email interview questions. So like, here's some facts that we dug up about you. Like, you won a children's edutainer award in like 1987 or something. I was like, well, I was four in 1987, so that wasn't me.
That's about it. Thank you so much, Mr. Jed McKay, for coming on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm sorry the video didn't work out, but at least the audio seems to be holding out.
No worries, it's the audio that's important.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, thank you so much.
All right, thanks for having me on.